Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So I suggest one person who knows to play kartal take it, and then others who are trying to learn can follow that person. Okay? So it becomes easier. Okay? So try to follow him how he playing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Gopal Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya 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 Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Raman Hari Govinda 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 Jaya 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 Gopal Jaya Jaya Govinda 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 Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya Radha Raman Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radha Raman Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Jai Jai Radhe Radhe Shyam Jai 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 Vrindavan Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Jai Jai Radhe Radhe Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Pavan Radha Tirona Pavan Shri Vrindavan Pavan Radha Tirona Pavan Shri Vrindavan Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare
Krishna Krishna Krishna
Krishna Krishna Krishna Krishna Krishna Krishna Krishna Hare Keshav Krishna Keshav Krishna Keshav Padima Krishna Keshav Krishna Keshav Krishna Keshav Krishna Keshav Padima Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namah Keshavaya Namaha Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Haraya Namah Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Haraya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I think we had longer kirtan than you normally have.
That's awesome.
You distribute papers?
Yes. Job करें तो ये afterwards करेंगे ना?
Absolutely.
So I will distribute.
From your schedule, there's already time for to talk, right? It's 11 o'clock.
Prabhuji, kids will go to the class.
Kids can come for the class.
Okay, kids can go to the class. Rohin, hey Rohin, kala kya onda? Kala kya onda? Take him by his hand. What is that?
This is costly, right? Cost of living is very high in India.
Namamrita just means the nectar of the holy name. Nama means name and Amrita is nectar. So what I'll do is I'll just read the paragraphs and then we can discuss it. The yoga system, as it was recommended in the Satya Yuga, the golden age, was to always meditate on Vishnu. In the Treta Yuga, one could practice yoga by performing great sacrifice, and in the next age, Dwapar Yuga, one could achieve perfection by temple worship. This present age is called Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga means the age of quarrel and disagreement. No one agrees with anyone else. Everyone has his own theory, everyone has his own philosophy. If I do not agree with you, you fight me. This is a symptom of Kali Yuga. The only method recommended in this age is chanting the holy name of God. One can attain that perfection in self-realization which is attained by the yoga system in the Satya Yuga, by performing a great sacrifice in the Treta Yuga, by large-scale temple worship in the Dwapara Yuga, and the perfection can be attained by the simple method of Hari Kirtan. Hari means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Kirtan means to glorify. This is from Krishna Consciousness, the topmost yoga system by Srila Prabhupada. So before we even actually start understanding or trying to understand this section, the first question is that one would have is, the yoga system was recommended. Recommended for what? Right? So whenever somebody says follow a certain process, the question is for what? Why should I follow a process? What am I going to achieve out of that? Right? So you will only practice a certain process if it gives you a certain goal which you want. Because there are so many things that can potentially be done. Right? For instance, if you want to gain admission into a certain type of educational institution, or if you want to get a certain kind of job, right? Like for instance, I work mostly with federal government and with a lot of secret stuff, military and stuff like that. So secret clearances are required for that. Now, if you don't want to work in that facility, you don't need the secret clearance. So if I give you a whole procedure of how to get a sickle clearance and what are the things you need to do, that information is of no use to you. Why? Is it because that information itself is useless? No. It's because that particular information is of no relevance to you. Because there's nothing you can do with it. Because that is not your goal. So before we even understand why a certain process is recommended, we need to dial 3 steps back and understand what is this process for? And is that even something that I'm interested in? Because if you're convinced that this is the right process for, if you want to become a marathon runner, the specific process, right? But if you have no interest in running marathons, then me insisting that this is the best process to become a marathon runner, you may say maybe that's true, but how is that relevant to me? Right? Maybe this is the best way to become a marathon runner. Yeah, I agree with you. But it's completely irrelevant to me. So it has no bearing. So whether it's true or not is irrelevant. Right? So before you understand what the process is and whether it's true or not, and we try to convince you that this is the best process, before that we need to understand why this is even a process that we should be worried about. Do you agree? So a lot of times we just focus on saying this is the best process. For what? Why should we even care? Right? Is this something that's relevant in this day and age? We live in 2013. We have so many different things that we do. We have so many different professions. Many of you are in the technology profession. Some of you are in the medical profession. All these professions, you have certain family responsibilities, job responsibilities, society responsibilities, and so on. So in this grand scheme of things, where does this fit in? Why should I even care about it? Right? Why should I even worry about understanding it and then after I understand, practice it? That is the first question. So we have to dial it back a few notches and understand why why one should desire to even achieve something like this. Achieve perfection. What is the meaning of perfection? That perfection can be attained by simple method of Hari Kirtan. What is that perfection? One can attain that perfection and self-realization, which is attained by the yoga system in the Satya Yuga, performing great sacrifice in Treta Yuga, by large-scale temple worship in Dwapara Yuga. So before I even get into what these yugas are and what these different systems are, the question is what should be the goal of our life?
To attain self-realization.
What does that mean?
To be one with God and not have a more... we should not be born again and again.
So that which is nice, which is a nice shastric answer. But what does it mean in practical life?
Practical life.
When you get up in the morning, is that what your first goal is? That I should not be born again?
No, it's just like having satisfaction with your life.
Yeah, that is getting back to more practical. Now, okay, so when I ask a question, the idea is not to try to give an answer which is considered the right answer from a bookish perspective, but what does it mean practically? So you hit it right on the head where you say satisfaction. So what does that mean?
Peaceful life.
Peaceful life, okay, that's one. Happy, yeah, that's another one. Anything else?
Better mind control, like we're able to control our mind so that we're less anxious, less
So better mind control is again a technique. But what is the goal of mind control? Why would you want to control your mind?
Well, just to become peaceful.
Yeah, again, so the goal again becomes peaceful. So whether you do it by mind control or some other technique, the technique is a separate question. The question is what is the goal? So goal is, everybody will agree with that, right? To become, regardless of your religious persuasion, whether you're wearing this kind of clothes like me, or whether you're wearing a suit, or whether you go to church, or whether you go to temple, whether you don't believe in God at all, right? Whatever your persuasion, nobody will disagree that I want to be happy, I want to have satisfaction, I want to have peace, right? So if somebody denies that is his goal, then maybe we need to have a separate discussion that they have some other issues which we need to deal with, and maybe the medical doctors won't be able to fix them, psychiatric doctors will be needed. But essentially most sane people are pursuing the same things, right? They want to be happy, peaceful, not have worries. So that is, why is that? That is, again, the question is why is that our pursuit? Have you ever thought about it? Why is that our pursuit?
That's my actual nature, to be peaceful, happy, satisfied. That's our true nature.
Yeah.
Again, that's a bookish.
But still, I mean, that's a natural state. You typically are happy in your natural state, right? So it is not, although it is bookish, it is also realizable. You can realize it, that why you feel happier when you roam around everywhere, finally come back home, you feel happy, right? When you come to your home, you feel happy because you feel it's your natural environment. So you feel, okay, finally, wherever I went, finally I'm back home, I'm happy, right? Similarly, we seek happiness because, why? Because that is our natural environment. We feel like, okay, the disease condition of body is not natural condition, right? So if you have some infection and you take some medication and then your infection goes away, then the infection is not the natural state of the body. The infection goes away and you're back to normal. That is your natural state. So you feel, okay, this is, you want to be back to your normal state. So the fact that we're seeking happiness or peace or satisfaction is not unusual because that is a natural state. Right? So the next question is, what is happiness? So you're seeking something, then we should know what it is. Right? And we should know where to find it, and how to find it, and how to keep it. There are multiple questions here. Right? So there are all kinds of happiness. You have temporary happiness or lasting happiness. First of all, you should know what happiness is. And if something is going to give you happiness, it shouldn't keep changing with time. It shouldn't be so temporary that it gives you, right? For example, when people take drugs for intoxication, why do they take drugs? It gives them some momentary happiness that they experience, right? Because if they experience no happiness, then they would not do it, right? Because at whatever level they experience some happiness at some level, but then the long-term effects are quite disastrous. So that kind of happiness really has no meaning. Because so the happiness is so short-lived that the pain of that happiness is not worth it. So whenever we try to pursue happiness, we need to first understand what happiness means. And what can really make you happy. And so here is where it becomes a little tricky. Because you see everybody running after things that we're conditioned to believe that's going to make us happy. We're conditioned meaning we're trained. From our childhood, we trained that, okay, if you get good grades, it'll make you happy. If you do this, it'll make you happy. If you get a good job, it'll make you happy. If you get married to a good person, it'll make you happy. If you have good kids, it'll make you happy. These are all things which are not false. They're true. They're true. But the happiness it gives you is limited in context. Right? It's limited in context. So you start saying, okay, this is fine. I got this, now I'm seeking something else. I'm seeking something else. So, one of the very wonderful quotes that I'd heard from my spiritual master, he was saying that, we're actually meant to use things and love people. But we end up loving things and using people.
Could you repeat that again, bro?
We are meant to use things and love people.
Use things and love people.
Yeah.
You're supposed to.
You suppose that's what we're meant to do. But we love things and use people.
That's true.
That is what we end up doing, right? That's what materialism is all about. That you love your iPhone, you love your iPad, you love your house, and love so many things. But then you use people to get it and keep it. Whereas you're meant to use things. They're not meant to be loved. They're meant to be used for a purpose. And ultimately you're meant to love people. So, according to people who are fairly experienced, the most fundamental thing that gives happiness is love. And does anybody have an objection to this statement? Does anybody believe this is not correct? The most fundamental thing that gives happiness is love.
More than money, I guess.
Yes.
Anything else.
To be loved and to have somebody to love. This gives you more happiness than anything else. And that's practical realization also. Right? If someone were to give you a lot of money and then take away all the people who are close to you, that would not be a very nice situation. That would not be a very nice situation. Right? So, the relationships that we have, the people that are around us, and the love that we feel, the exchange of relationship that we have, gives us more happiness than anything else. And you cannot replace that happiness with things or money. And people who actually pursue that path where they are replacing things around, people around them with things, eventually are very disillusioned. They may temporarily feel they're happy, but in the end of the day, it just leads to disillusionment. Because human nature is to derive happiness by loving and being loved. That is the only way we derive happiness. Why we love our children so much? Because materially they're not really giving us anything, right? They're just draining resources from us. If you look at it that way, isn't that the fact? They're not productive in the home. They don't even clean the dishes or anything. And they just drain our resources. So why do we feel so much affection for the children? Because
We have given birth
Yeah.
to them.
that's incidental, okay, but that's fine.
They are part of our body.
Yes.
That is all okay. But love is there. That is the real reason.
Yeah.
There is love. And then when there is love, then what they can actually materially give you or don't give you doesn't matter. It's not relevant. So our ability to love doesn't depend on how much materially they can give us. In the middle of the night when the child is crying and you go and give medicine or make the child feel better, you're not thinking that, okay, this is going to cost her $300 when she grows up. No, that's never something that you're thinking about. Right? So it's just basically love. So the fundamental objective of life is to become happy. And happiness is derived by exchange of love, relationships. So now you try to extend it a little further. So the question is, why is that? Why are material things not really making you happy, but something that's intangible making you happy? What is the reason for that?
We are not a material body.
And that is the right answer. Now, so what does that mean?
Because we are made up of emotions. I mean,
Emotions we're not made up of emotions. Emotions are part of our being, but what Devendra is referring to is that in the Bhagavad Gita, the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the first thing that when Arjun puts forth so many seemingly wonderful arguments, and I don't want to turn this into a Gita class, but I will at least touch on it a little bit. Arjun is in front of his army, and he is seeing all his uncles and father-in-laws and other relatives surrounding him, trying to start this battle. He tells Krishna, I cannot fight. There's no way. And he gives several reasons why he cannot fight. The first reason he gives is compassion. He says, I should feel compassionate for these people. How can I kill them? Second reason he gives is, he says that we accumulate so many things so that we can enjoy them. But if the people with whom we have to enjoy are all killed, what is the point? Right? If I get this kingdom, but all the people with whom I need to enjoy this kingdom are all dead, there's no point in having this kingdom. And then he says, third reason he gives a sinful reaction. He says, sinful reaction will overcome us if we kill our grandfathers and teachers and so on and so forth. And it's sinful. And the fourth reason he gives is, he says that family traditions will be lost. Family traditions come down from older generation to younger generation. If I kill all the older generation, there'll be nobody to teach. And finally he says, I'm not able to decide whether I should fight or just be killed. And again, in spite of all my qualification, education, what is the result of all this? When faced with a real crisis, unable to decide. That's our situation too. We should learn from that. So we cannot, on our own, try to make all decisions, because then that just leads to a situation where we are whimsically making decisions. So without the guidance of a proper spiritual authority, our ability to make decisions in very difficult circumstances is very, very, very difficult. So at that point, Krishna doesn't say, oh, wonderful reasons, and it's very nice. He immediately chastises him. He says, what kind of stupid reasons are you giving me? I mean, I thought you were an intelligent person, and you speak just nonsense. And then the first thing he speaks in the Gita, in the second chapter, that's when he starts speaking, is he gives knowledge, or jnana. And the knowledge he gives is about, you're not the body or the soul. The real you, that loves with the heart, thinks with the brain, has emotions in the mind, walks with the feet, and does things with the hand. But the you is your soul. And the soul never dies. The soul goes from one body to the other. So soul, the real you, is actually not material. The real you. So when we say, when any culture, forget about just the Vedic culture, any culture, when they say, yeah, I will do it for you, where do they point?
Heart.
Do they point here, saying, I will do it for you? No. They point to the heart automatically, because the soul resides in the region of the heart. It's not the physical organ, the heart, but the soul is 1/100th of the tip, 100,000th of the tip of the head. It's very, very small, tiny, and it resides in the region of the heart. And the soul is a symptom of consciousness. So when somebody dies, a soul leaves the body. That's what the Shastras teach us very systematically. And this whole concept of consciousness is because of the existence of soul. So the existence of soul, the symptom is consciousness. So again, I'm not making a whole point on the soul, but the point I was trying to make is that the reason why material things don't make us happy is because we're ultimately not material. If you're ultimately material, the material things would make you happy.
Question.
Yes.
So why is Arjuna tasked with the responsibility of killing people, and whereas Arjuna has not really, given any, birth, or has not played any role in creation of those people, why should this burden fall on Krishna? On Arjuna. What?
So
he's not the creator,
So the question is, why, if Arjuna is not creator of those people, how does he have the burden of killing them? So first of all, just because you create somebody doesn't give you the authority to kill him anyway, because you have no authority to kill your children, right? So creation doesn't give you the responsibility or the authority to kill anybody. That's the first thing. And secondly, the battle of Kurukshetra. So again, the Bhagavad Gita is a text that has to be understood in its entirety. Right, so there are three things about the Bhagavad Gita which are basic requirements. One is, the Bhagavad Gita is first of all not a mythological or a kind of a allegorical text. It's a factual historical text, and the history of the Bhagavad Gita is that the Pandavas, this 5 sons of King Pandu, were deprived of their kingdom in a very without going into the whole story of the Mahabharata, in a very improper way. It was ultimately their kingdom. And when their father Pandu died, his sons were too young. Yudhishthira was too young to become the king. So Dhritarashtra, his father's older brother, who was blind, became the caretaker king. So ultimately it was Yudhishthira's kingdom, which was unjustly and unfairly taken away. And so, as Kshatriyas, it is their responsibility to their citizens to take back what is rightfully theirs. And so there were a number of things that were tried in terms of compromise and so on and so forth, and nothing worked. And finally, the Pandavas said, give us 5 villages. We don't even want kingdom anymore. We don't even have kingdom, nothing we want. Just give us 5 villages and we will be happy with 5 villages because we're Kshatriyas. We have to rule something. That is our dharma. And Duryodhana, who was the son of Dhritarashtra, refused to even give enough land to poke a pin in. He said, I cannot even give you enough land to poke a pin. So there was no way there was any compromise. So it was a responsibility of the Pandavas as Kshatriyas to do what was rightfully theirs. For instance, to give you an example, if you're a policeman and your responsibility is to protect the citizens. And if there's somebody who's committing an atrocity or has say kidnapped a bus full of school children, and then you have to go and rescue the bus, right? Now you're at a point where you're a sniper and you're in the sniper force, and you have a gun, with sniper gun, and you have the gun, and you can see the kidnapper in your scope, right? You see the scope, and then your commander says, okay, take a shot. Then you start thinking, oh, how can I take a shot? He also must be having children. He also must be having family. How will they feel? So the point is, compassion is a good quality, but it cannot be misplaced, because you, as a sniper, did not ask the guy to kidnap the school children. You had no role in that. Your role is to protect the children who are dependent on you for protection. So your compassion has to be to the children who were innocently kidnapped, and not to the kidnapper and what's going to happen to his family. So he made some actions which have consequences. He willfully made those actions which have consequences. Similarly, the people who fought in the battle of Kurukshetra, the Kauravas, and all the other armies who joined the Kauravas, willingly joined the army to fight in this battle. So nobody was forced to fight this battle. Everybody with their free will decided to join Duryodhana to fight the battle. And so as a Kshatriya and as the rightful king, Yudhishthira had this duty to fight. And Arjuna and the other Pandavas were fighting on the order of Yudhishthira as the king, as the rightful king. So in the discharge of duty, there is no question of then determining, oh, in that case, then I should not do my duty. So it was not a question of whimsically having a battle to kill people to show that I can take away things which don't belong to me, just so that I can show my power. So this is a situation which was not related to Arjun trying to prove supremacy and his military power by fighting people who were innocent and killing them. The situation was they willfully got into a situation where there was no choice but to willfully take back what was rightfully his. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. So slight change in the. So you mentioned it was his responsibility. Now, us, I mean, we are not Kshatriyas. I mean, we are not fighting on a daily basis to sort of, ascertain our rights or beyond. Going to work, bringing food on the table, having a house and taking care of the family. What should be our next level responsibility beyond that, or is there anything?
Absolutely. So that's what this. That is the question that this was what we were discussing. So ultimately, the objective is to be happy. It is our responsibility to be happy and to give happiness to people who are part of our responsibility. The wife, the children, and the wife's responsibility is to give happiness to the husband and the family. But then the question is, how do we understand what happiness means? And so the exchange of love is the most important thing. So our responsibility is to teach the people who we are responsible for the importance of love and not things. Right? That becomes a high responsibility. And the question is, how do you actually have love? Which is not based on selfishness. Which is not based on what you can give me, even between a husband and a wife. How do you actually have love which is not based on what you can do for me and what I can do for you, but actual love? And that's where we take shelter of what the Acharyas say, the Shastra says. The paragraph we were reading talks about perfection. Perfection is to experience perfect love. And the question is, how can you actually do that? And what does that mean? So it's like this. People have so many kinds of missions where people are feeling compassionate towards. A lot of people feel compassion towards people who are hungry. They're trying to feed people who are hungry, right? That's one type of compassion. People feel compassionate towards people who are abused or neglected and so on. Those are all very wonderful things, and they should definitely be done. But as far as the Shastras are concerned, they say that ultimately you have to satisfy the root of the tree also. And by satisfying the root of the tree, all the branches, all the twigs get satisfied. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that all living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. They come from Krishna and they're part and parcel of Krishna. So all living entities, be it human beings, be it people we like, including people we don't like, are part and parcel of Krishna. So it's not like people we like are part and parcel of Krishna and the people we don't like are not. So all species of life are part and parcel of Krishna. So what is the meaning of saying, I will not eat meat? Right? It doesn't mean simply that we're vegetarian, because even like deer is vegetarian, goats are vegetarian. They're not very spiritually advanced. So being vegetarian by itself is not a sign of spiritual advancement. And someone who thinks that they're spiritually advanced because they're vegetarian is misled. The reason why vegetarianism makes sense is because it's based on compassion. And why? Because we realize that all living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. So how do we have the right to then exploit certain living entities? Similarly, then we understand what are responsibilities in the grander scheme of things. Because, we understand that we're not the body, we're the soul. And in this lifetime, I have a relationship with certain living entities who are related to me from bodily concept, right? Because they're my children, they're my father. So we have that responsibility. But we also have to have the understanding that this relationship is only limited to this lifetime. What about next lifetime? What about beyond? What happens after death? So when we start understanding those concepts, we realize that we not only have to do things that are going to secure us for this lifetime, but also do things which are beyond this lifetime, which secure us beyond this lifetime. And similarly, help people who we truly love secure themselves beyond this lifetime. Right? Because just like, when as a parent, we don't not only want to take care of our children until we live, but even after we pass away, we want to make sure they are somehow provided for and so on and so forth, right? Why do people take life insurance? They can easily say, when I'm dead, what do I care? If I'm dead, what do I care what happens to people, right? I'm already, even if you don't believe in the soul, or if you're just totally atheistic, you say, okay, you're dead, you're gone, it's done, lifetime is done. What difference does it make? To you, it doesn't make any difference to you, but still, you want to provide for them. Similarly, extending the same logic, you want to also provide for them beyond this lifetime. You got to give them the proper training and the proper understanding that they can actually carry over the happiness beyond need. Your duty is to pay for whatever you buy. So your duty changes based on circumstances, time, place, and circumstances. Right? Your duty to your parents is different from your duty to your wife, is different from your duty to your children. So all these are different dharmas we have. So what is the highest dharma? Is the question. The highest dharma according to the Shastra is Yato Bhakti Vriksha. Adhokshaja is the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, Krishna, Rama, whatever name we want to give, right? And Krishna is the most perfect name for the Lord because it means the all-attractive one, right? So Yato Bhakti Vriksha. Devotion to the Supreme Lord is the highest dharma. And how should that dharma be executed? Ahituki. Ahituki means without motivation. Without any hetu, without any motivation. So we always, whenever we do something for somebody, we always have a motivation for something we get back. Right? So that if I speak nicely to a friend, I expect him to speak nicely back to me. But the example I gave earlier of if you have a child and you provide services to your child, and the child is born, there's no expectation of return. So that is probably the example of purest love that is available in our experience. Even husband and wife, the relationship is, although they may be love, but it is to a large extent based on what each other can do for each other. If the husband continues to mistreat the wife and ignore, the love will end. Same way if the wife continues to behave in a bad way, love is going to end pretty quickly. Sometimes it ends even if there is extra salt in the food, right? You get angry and immediately, what happened to the undying love, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that we say we love, but we don't really know what it means in many cases. Love really means unconditional. Doesn't matter what you do to me, doesn't matter what circumstances I'm in, that is what is love. And in most cases, we don't really understand what it means. We just speak it, especially when we watch movies, we think that two people running around trees means love, but that is really not love. That's infatuation. So, what is the meaning of love? And so, ahituki, unmotivated, devotion to God. And apratiyata means uninterrupted, not whenever I have time, whenever, once a week, once a month, once a year, uninterrupted. And then what is that? What is the goal of that? What is the result of that? Yayatma suprasidati. That is the only thing that can really satisfy the soul. Because the soul is ultimately connected to God, and unless you establish that connection and relish that connection, you can never feel happiness. And you can never really love anybody else because you don't understand that connection. If you are loving somebody purely based on your bodily relationship, as soon as that relationship is not benefiting you, that love will end. And we see that all the time. So, our responsibility as grahasthas, as people who are married with children and so on and so forth, in addition to being good citizens and being good husbands and fathers and wives and mothers and so on and so forth, is also to try to teach our children, our family members, how to really love. And we cannot really teach that unless we know how to love ourselves. And we cannot know how to love ourselves unless we understand that we are connected because we are all parts and parcel of God. And so that is what this whole paragraph is talking about, that the perfection stage is to really understand who you really are. Self-realization means what? We all use the word self-realization. What does it really mean? To realize who you are. What does that mean? Who you are meaning who you are in the context of the greater system, not just in isolation. The fact that you know your soul, you're not the body, means nothing. It's just some jnana. Okay. So what? If you're not the body, you're the soul. So what? So what is? Okay, so you're a soul and you're part and parcel of God, and you can only be happy if you realize that realization. If you execute that realization. Right? Simply knowing doesn't mean anything. What are you doing about it? What do you do about it? Right? Just like a person has some disease, simply knowing what disease he has, knowing the name of that disease, doesn't cure him. Right? I do all sorts of tests and say, hey, you have this disease, and it's a very fancy name and long name, and so okay. So now what? Unless you're able to treat that disease, I cannot say, well, I know what the disease is, but I cannot treat you. I have no ability to treat you. Then better not to know. Then you're happier because you don't know, and then you just pass away one day, and then otherwise you're in anxiety because you know you have a disease and you know this is what the problem is, and you have no ability to get treated. That's even more anxiety. Similarly, just knowing you're the soul, so what? What are you doing about it? And how are you living your life to show that you're a soul? You're not body. Because if we do so many things for the body, right? But what are we doing about our soul? So no wonder we are not feeling constant happiness, because most of our activities are directed to making our body happy, which is also important. Because the body is the vehicle for the soul. So you have to keep our body fit. So it's not like we neglect our body. But we understand, just like you have to keep your car well maintained and do oil change and all that. But you're not the car. You keep your car well maintained so that you can go places. Not just you keep it in the garage and keep it nicely polished. The objective of the car is to take you where you want to go. If you say, no, I cannot take my car out, it'll become dirty, it's snowy outside. Then what is the objective of the car? The objective of the car is to take you places. If you don't use it for that, then it's waste. Simply the body is a vehicle that the soul can actually execute activities that can benefit the soul. If we don't do that, we're wasting our opportunity. The human body is the only form of life which has the ability to think. No other form of life has the ability to think. So if you don't use human body to think, then what is the point? Why claim that we are human beings? Why claim that we are superior beings? Because if our activities are the same as animals, then we should just be animals. So we cannot be hypocritical. If you're being true to yourself, then it's important. Any other questions?
So let's say a child is not doing what we expected him to do. Let's say cleaning house and simple things.
Right.
So at that point, we can show love, or we can punish, or remain neutral. and these kind of things happen even in work. It can happen with your partner. I mean,
So what is the meaning of love? The love is to do what is in the best interest. Right? So like our daughter, she's diabetic, 3-year-old. So we have to give her insulin before every meal. Like 4 times she gets insulin shots. Now, she doesn't always like to get insulin shots. But what is in her best interest? To get the shots. So as parents, if I say, oh, she doesn't want, so let's not give her, she will cry or she's upset, then am I being a good parent? No. So being a good parent or being the self-interest of the other person doesn't mean that you do whatever they want. And in some cases, to give the child a scolding or a timeout so that they listen to you is the way to show love, the proper way to show love in that situation. So even if you're scolding the child, it's because you love the child. You don't scold. If your neighbor's child doesn't do homework, you don't scold that child, right? Why? You don't care. Right? If some other child in some other part of Reading, you read in the paper that the child misbehaved in the bus and didn't do what was needed or whatever else, you don't call up the family and say, hey, why aren't you raising your child properly? You don't care. So there's no love. But if your child did something in the bus, if let's say your child punched another child in the bus, and you got a note from the bus driver saying, hey, your son punched the kid sitting next to you. Absolutely. Your son or daughter will need to be disciplined. Why? Because of love. So the motivation has to be very clear. So what ends up happening is, for children it's easier because we know we have right motivation. But when we deal with others, a lot of times the motivation is not clear. Are we showing anger because of our own ego, or we really have the other person's self-interest in mind? Right? So to give feedback also, there are 2 things that are required. Right? You have to give somebody feedback. Everybody has feedback for other people in terms of how they are, right? How they can improve their lives in many ways. Right? So first question is, actually there are three points. First is it really true? The point you're trying to make. You have to ask yourself, the point I'm trying to make, let's say I want to give somebody feedback that, hey, Prabhu, you do this, or I didn't like this, or you behave this way, which is not a nice way to behave. You want to give some feedback, or you work this way, I don't like it. First question is, you have to genuinely ask yourself, is it really true? Feedback, or am I just creating this feedback for me to look good and that person to look bad? That's the first thing. Second is, do I really have that other person's best interest in my heart? And is it beneficial for me to give this feedback at this point? Will the other person be able to take it the right way? And the third is, do I have the relationship to be actually able to give this feedback? So it's received in a positive way. Right? It's like money in the bank. Right? Because when you ask kids that, hey, kids want things and they say, I don't have money, the kids sometimes say, oh, go to the bank and they can get the money. They don't have the concept that you have to first put in money, then you can get it out. Relationships are like that. Unless you make deposit, you cannot make withdrawal. So if you've not made any deposit in the relationship, if we met for the first time, and if I give you some feedback, then you might think, what is this person? He's like, he barely knows me and he's giving me all this feedback. It's not going to be received well. But if you know each other for a number of years and there's a lot of exchange of relationship and love, and there's genuinely you feel, oh, this person is my well-wisher, and then that person gives some feedback, then you're able to accept it, saying, okay. And you couch it in the right way and you give it in the right way. Right? So, a lot of times when we try to give feedback, it's because of our own ego, as opposed to genuinely trying to make a positive difference in the environment. So we have to ask these questions: that is it true? Is it required? Is it really? Do I really have the other person's best interest in my heart? And do I have the relationship to actually provide that feedback? And if we have these gates, it becomes very easy. Then you have the time you realize that, okay, motivation is wrong. Whereas when you're dealing with children, the motivation question is not there, because your motivation is always right. You want to make sure the child is raised right. So you give feedback, and sometimes the feedback is verbal, sometimes it has to be not so verbal. But that's also because you have the best interest of the child in mind, right? Not because you're having some other motivation. So that is the meaning of love. Love doesn't mean that simply doing what the other person wants, if they don't know what they want. Love really means that working in the best interest of the other person. Is that? So, and then we have to really examine our own motivations first. And then the relationships become much easier. For any relationship, be it work relationship or... Because when the other person feels that you genuinely have their best interest in your heart, then it's very difficult for them to have a problem with you. Because even temporarily, if you have a problem, the investment in the relationship is there to overcome those issues. So you have a temporary issue, you may be upset for an hour, but then you think about it with a cooler head, then you realize, yeah, actually what that person said is correct. And then the relationship sustains. But if the other person feels that you're not really genuine, then how do you expect? Then you're basically just sermonizing. It's not going to be accepted. Is that okay?
No, very helpful.
So the process, so we've talked about what the perfection they're talking about. So the different processes in different ages, and I'm not going to go into Satyuga and what the time scale on is. It's not so relevant. So basically this day and age that we live in, just for giving it a name, let's call it Kali Yuga. Okay, that's a name that is in the Shastra. So the symptoms of Kali Yuga are defined very clearly in Shastra. Prayana Alpayusha Kalo Asmin Yugejana Manda Asumanda Matayo Manda Bhagya Upadrita. It says Prayana Alpayusha. It says in the Kali Yuga people have short lives. Unpredictable short lives. So many problems. And people have very bad habits also in terms of, not regular habits. People don't, people work like dogs and sitting in a table whole day or desk whole day. And that's not really what human beings are meant to do, staring at a computer screen for 10 hours a day. That is not really how life is supposed to be. But we made it that way. Or drive for 2 hours to get to work, 1.5 hours every day. So we basically make our life such a way that overall life is very unhealthy. So there's so much stress at work, so our eating habits are also irregular. I know so many people who don't eat meals at regular times because they're busy working. But I thought the objective of working was that you can earn money so you can at least eat. That is the most basic function of working, right? That you can have money to eat. But if you work so hard that you don't have time to eat, then it kind of defeats the purpose. Right? Even poor people are better off then. At least they eat regular times. If you're so rich and you're so busy that you cannot eat, then what is the point? So people skip meals, eat regular meals, and then eat unhealthy foods. All these affects your health. And then, so Kali Yuga people are like that. They have unpredictable short lives. Right? People live longer, maybe medically you can say they live longer, but quality of life is not that great. Not that great once you get beyond a certain point. And then Mandabhagya are very unfortunate. All sorts of unfortunate things happen. You're always disturbed. Right? You're lazy. And if you ask somebody to come for 6 o'clock Bhagavatam class, nobody will come. It's 6 o'clock Sunday. Are you kidding me? It's too early. Right? But so people are not ready to get up earlier, or do anything useful. People are happy to watch. So there was a joke that somebody was unhealthy and they went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Hey, you not at all exercising. You need to exercise. It's very unhealthy." So he used to watch golf on TV. So he switched to watching tennis on TV. It's more active. So that's the idea of exercise. We don't really exercising our thumbs. Even kids, right? The video game and all these kind of things. They exercise their thumbs and fingers, not really their body. So overall, our ability to focus, our ability to give time, to really understand Shastra, to practice spirituality in a proper way, meditate. People want to do meditation. What meditation will you do? 10 minutes, you're not able to focus. Problem with relationship is the same thing. We're not present. In conversations, we're not present. And I'll explain what that means. That, especially with the advent of smartphones, that has become a completely huge problem. That even when you're talking to somebody, every few minutes they will look at their phone. think some email has come or some text message has come. So they're not really physically present when you're actually physically present, not mentally present. So unless you're fully present, how can you have a relationship? Other person is saying something, and you're more interested in what somebody might have said in a text message as opposed to what the live person is saying in front of you. I had this issue even before that. I had gone to some store one time, Walmart or some store, to return something. And I was talking to the clerk and the phone rang. And she picked up the phone and started talking on the phone. And then she said, sorry, I had a phone call. And said, so somebody just called you from their home and you picked that up. And I took the trouble to actually get in the car, come all the way to the store and standing in front of you. And you think it's more important to talk to somebody on the phone than to me, who's standing in front of you? So that is just a symptom. So lack of attention. So in Kali Yuga, what meditation we can do? So each age has certain things which are done for that age, which are appropriate for that age. So this day and age, with all the limitations that we have of time, of attention span, of ability to focus, interest, having the right opportunity, right guidance, and so on and so forth. There are so many different processes. See, Arjun, in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, is called Dhyana Yoga, where 6th chapter focuses on the Ashtanga Yoga process. What is Ashtanga Yoga? How many limbs Ashtanga Yoga has? Anybody knows? 8. Yeah. Ashtanga. Ashta means 8 in Sanskrit. So Ashtanga. So Yam, Niyam, Pranayam, Asan, Pratyahar, Dhyan, Dharana, Samadhi. 8 steps. So Asana is only one of the 8. Pranayam is one of the 8. And when Arjun hears all this description of this process, what is his reaction? Does he say, wow, this is great, let me just follow Ashtanga Yoga? No, he says, this is impractical. Arjun says in 6th chapter that, Krishna, the process you have described to me of Ashtanga Yoga is highly impractical and cannot be executed by me. And who's Arjun? He's associate of Krishna. He's so much more qualified than, in 5,000 years ago when he didn't have cell phone, to worry about text message, anything of that sort. He was a lot more peaceful, right? And Arjuna is saying this method is highly impractical. So with our limited qualification, our limited ability to understand, our limited time, and so many distractions, how we think we can practice a system that was rejected by Arjuna as being impractical? Not possible. Right? It's practically, you can think that, if somebody says, okay, for practicing Ashtanga Yoga for the next 10 years, do nothing but sit in this corner and focus on tip of your nose and control your breathing. What is this? Maybe every Sunday 1 hour I can do, but not for the next 10 years, just do that. I cannot, not practical. So all these methods are existing, but for this day and age, they're not practical. So what this paragraph says is that the goals that can be achieved in the other yugas by meditating on the Lord, by practicing yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, by great sacrifices, and can be achieved in this Kali Yuga by simple method of Hari Kirtan. Hari Kirtan means chanting the name of the Lord. So what we did for half an hour before we started this discussion was Hari Kirtan. Kirtan can be done in multiple ways. It can be done by loudly singing, or can also be done in a way of chanting the name of the Lord. So in our process of Bhakti Yoga that we practice, the mantra that we use, mantra means, man means mind, tra means one that delivers. So any control, deliver your mind. The process that's recommended is chanting of this Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So there are many mantras, but this is a mantra that's recommended for Kali Yuga. In our path, in our Bhakti path, we practice the chanting of this mantra. We use beads to chant so that we can know how many mantras we're chanting. So that the objective of chanting, some people say, well, I chant all the time, I don't really count. The reason is that just like even you have to take medication, you need to know how many pills to take. Doctor doesn't say, hey, how much ever you feel, just take, and it'll be beneficial for you. You have a specific number, okay, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 at night. So for everything we do, right, You go to work, you have like X number of hours of responsibility you have to do, or whatever. Certain responsibility you have. Just like, so chanting the rounds, by having prescribed number, it gives the regulation that at the very minimum you will do that. And do it in a structured way, as opposed to doing whenever you feel like. Because the mind is such that you'll never feel like. Sometimes you feel, sometimes you don't, right? That's not acceptable. Right? School, they have regulation that, okay, school starts at 8, ends at 4, and you got to be there during those times. You can't just go when you feel like going, or today I didn't feel like going, I don't go. It's not acceptable. There's regulation. Similarly for execution of bhakti, because we are in the environment where our mind is not always in our control, there's certain regulation that's provided so that you can, at the very minimum, follow a practice that says, okay, you chant Krishna's name in a certain way, create certain regulation in your life that you can then practice it. And so we practice it accordingly. And of course I couldn't get through the whole notes, but the way I like to teach is that even if I'm teaching one paragraph, it should be clear, as opposed to just teaching the whole book and then I finished my job of teaching, but whether anybody understood or not is not really my concern. That's really not the way I look at it. So at least we have 3 paragraphs. I hope you understand what this is and why the practice of Krishna consciousness is critical. Because this is, objective of life is to be happy. And if you seek happiness in the wrong place, it's not going to work. Right? It's like if you have a disease, a certain medicine that helps you, you can take any other medicine you want. But unless you take that medicine, it's not going to help you. So, so kids are hungry now. Any other questions or comments from anybody?
So how do you define unhappiness?
Unhappiness is a sign of your dissatisfaction. So, unhappiness is lack of happiness. It's like, in physics terms, how do you define cold? Is there a term, is there a concept I'm going a little deeper in physics, but is there anything in physics called cold?
It is only determined with heat.
Yeah, it's absence of heat. There's no such thing as cold. You cannot measure cold. You can only measure heat or absence of heat. Similarly, unhappiness is absence of happiness. So you've been fired, I heard, for eat your rasgullas. So the happiness of eating rasgullas is completely overshadowed by, like, what? That's my job. So happiness is relative, you understand. So similarly, when we have to really understand what the standard of happiness is. And once we experience it, we can realize that. And so when we start practicing Krishna consciousness and start getting happiness out of that, then we realize that the standard of happiness is that. To really feel the connection, to feel loved and to love. That is the standard of happiness. Because there are people who go through so many material adversities that they feel that as long as I have people I love and people love me, I can overcome this. I can overcome any situation. Yeah, money, you lost all your money, okay, Lord. You can also make it back. What is that? Right? You can overcome it. But if you lose people you love, then it's much harder. Then you start, it's not so easy to overcome. Trust, faith. If you lost trust, how do you overcome it? It's impossible. And so the problem is, when somebody asks us for money, we're very careful. Because we know how valuable it is, and so we don't just generally put money in all sorts of crazy schemes. We make sure it is valid and so on and so forth, right? But when it comes to putting faith, we're not so careful. So we follow anybody who seems to give something which makes temporary sense. Somebody produces ash from his hand, you say, wow, wonderful. We should give all our faith to that person. So if the sign of God is to produce ash, then I can buy so much hay and produce so much ash in my backyard. It's not the sign of being God. God is, when all these planets are floating in air, we're not amazed by that. But we are amazed by all sorts of petty things. And we put our faith in all sorts of petty processes. So attainment of self-realization is not going to cost you money. It's going to cost you, not money. It's going to cost you, you got to put your faith, you got to put your sincerity and put your effort. That's what it's going to cost. right? And why people are not so interested in general? Because that's how it is. Krishna says in Gita that Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatad siddhaye yatadam api siddhanam kaschit mam veti tattvatha. There are millions of people, only few will be interested in self-realization. Because they are so engrossed in other things, only few will be interested. And out of the very few who are interested, most people will get misguided and go all sorts of places. Very few will actually come to the right place.
Dr. Krishna says Siddha, like who is Siddha here, Prabhuji?
Siddhas, according to the commentary of the Acharyas, Baldev Vidyabhushan and others, Siddhas refer to the Brahmavadis and the Bhaktas. Both. Both are considered Siddhas, perfectionists. But since the objective of the Bhagavad Gita is to get you to the platform of Bhakti, Prabhupada always translates that as devotees. Because he understands the goal. But the Acharyas comment that the same process works whether you want to have Brahman realization, Paramatma realization of the yogi, or Bhagavan realization. But since Prabhupada's objective was to get you to Bhagavan realization, he always translates even Karma Yoga as devotional service. Because that is the objective. But the process works for whether you're Brahmavadi, Paramatmavadi, or Bhagavan Bhakta.
So Lord Krishna is saying that even amongst all perfectionists, like
Right.
it's rare for someone to understand
Right.
him.
Right.
So even if somebody could be a devotee, still is to be Krishna.
Yes.
It's still difficult to.
So our objective is not to understand Krishna. Our objective is to love Krishna. Because I was just reading this a couple days ago that in the teachings of Kapil Muni to Devahuti, where Prabhupada writes in the purports that as devotees, our objective is not to understand Krishna, because even Krishna himself cannot understand Krishna. That is why he tried to come as he came as Mahaprabhu to try to understand why Radharani loves me so much. What is the joy she experiences? So it is not possible to fully say that I'll become a devotee only if I fully understand Krishna, because it's not possible. Objective is to love. So even a fragment of him we get to know, we can love. Some people love his childhood pastimes. One pastime you can love. You can love one aspect of the Lord. Sufficient. We don't have to understand. Whatever understanding we're speaking is only because to develop our faith. If you have faith and love, then there is no need to understand. Like, we have children. Is there any need to prove? I mean, the mothers gave birth, but for the fathers, did anybody do any DNA test to prove that it's your child? No, there's no need. Love is there is no need for any proof. Any knowledge is not required. Similarly, if you have love for God, the process of knowledge is all not required. It automatically develops. But since we don't have faith, we have to get so much knowledge so that at least we get some faith. Right? That is the problem. Our faith is not strong. So since faith is not strong, we have all these external processes to at least give us some faith. And then continue to water so that we can continue to have that faith.
No, but in the context of this particular verse, though, I was just asking that it looks like, Lord Krishna is kind of making us a little discouraged that, Bahunam Jaranam Ante Gyan Van Mam Prapadyate. No, I'm sorry. What was that verse? Again, repeat that again, bro.
Manushyanam sahasreshu.
So it gives a little bit of a discouragement that even if siddhas, perfection, we are far from being siddhas, far from being perfectionists, if they cannot understand, what hope do we have,
But that is the point. That is what the Acharya is. Prabhupada very specifically says that our objective is not to know Krishna. Our objective is to love Krishna, because that is what is going to give us happiness. Even if you don't know, it is irrelevant, is my point. Once you develop that love in bhakti, that is sufficient.
So Lord Krishna is trying to say indirectly that please don't try to know me.
Yeah. Because there are verses in the Bhagavatam also, and even in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Anantadev is for millions of mouths, millions of years trying to glorify Krishna, still has not completed. So how can we know the Lord in full? Because it is said that before, even Narayana, before he knows his glories expand even more. It's not possible to know. So because of our current conditioning, everything is based on what we know. We try to use that same logic in knowing, but that is not going to work.
And I just want to put a point that knowing is, I don't think that's that important either.
Right.
There's a simple example that girl and boy, they want to get married once they know each other a little bit. and they know for one couple months or couple years, and then they get married, and then they got to know, and then they say, well, we didn't know before that. So the knowing is has nothing to do with the trusting and loving, especially for the God, and even for that human being. I know you a little bit, and I get a trust and you get a trust, but still one person cannot know each other fully. When we're talking about knowing the God, that's next to the impossible.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Infinite, right? But no, you're so we're also limited. How can we know unlimited? Not possible.
Could you repeat the verse again and repeat the meaning again, bro? Because it's such a nice verse, though.
So it's Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatadi Siddhaye Yatatam Api Siddhanam Kaschid Mam Veti Tatvatah. It says Manushyanam, of all people in general, Sahasreshu, of millions. Sahasra is like millions. Kaschid Yatadi Siddhaye. So very few attain perfection. And Yatatam Api Siddhanam, of the people who attain perfection, Kaschid Mam Veti Tatvatah. Very few actually know me in reality. In Tatvatah. In actuality. Very few know me. That's what he's saying. These are all verses in the 7th chapter.
Historically, Prabhuji, is there any perfectionist who knows Krishna in Tattvata?
I don't know the answer
Like
to that.
what Mahajans? Do you think?
Yeah, Mahajans,
do you
Mahajans,
expect them to know Krishna?
definition of Mahajans is given in 7th chapter again. Of Mahatmas. Mahatmas is, their whole concept is they are 100% absorbed in Krishna. Satadam Kirtanto Mam. Satadam means always. Always. So you cannot artificially, Prabhupada says in the purport very nicely, you cannot rubber stamp a person as a Mahatma just because by popular vote. More people consider him Mahatma. Definition of Mahatma is one who's constantly absorbed in devotion. That is the only definition, no other definition. Not because they're a great social worker or a politician doesn't make you Mahatma. You only become Mahatma if you're 100% devoted to Krishna. That is the definition. So, any other questions from the Matajis?
So this verse is from Bhagavad Gita?
Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter. Narendra Prabhu, anything from you? Any questions?
No questions.
And Prabhu, you want to say something?
No, Prabhu, actually, I was wondering, Prabhu, this verse actually kind of amazes me. It kind of, sometimes it discourages me actually, because, but then of course, like in our process, in fact, as you rightly said earlier, is develop love, like,
Right.
because, but then, somehow, still try to contemplate upon what Krishna meant by Yo Bhakti Tattvata, like, what does he mean? I mean, what he's trying to convey through this verse, because I don't have the book in front of me for Bhagavad Gita, so I don't know.
Do you have
but-
Gita?
Yeah.
But Srila Prabhupada must have mentioned something in the purport.
Yeah, let's read the purport since the question came up, rather than speculate.
So what do you mean, sorry, while he's going to get the book, what do you mean by achievement and success? Is it, I mean, of course, everybody defines achievement and success by, accumulation of material wealth, or, is there a different definition that Bhagavad Gita or the whole concept proposes?
So, again, comes back to the same point that ultimately achievement means if you're achieved happiness, then you've achieved success. 'Cause that is see again, this question is a very context sensitive question. So if you're unaware of your goal, then what have you achieved? Right? So if I say that run and let's see who wins. So what is the end point? Where should we reach? That I don't know, but just run. That has no meaning. So you're running wherever you want, and then some guy reaches there, some guy reaches here, some guy reaches somewhere else. Nobody knows what is the destination, he's just running. But if you know what the destination is, then you have the Hindi Gita. I cannot read that. Yeah. I can read it, but it will take me 2 hours to read the purport. I can read the Sanskrit, but not the English.
I can. Do you have an iPhone, bro? We can quickly pull up a verse on iPhone. Yes, vedabase.net /DG.
7th chapter, right?
Forget the verse number. I'll tell you what the verse number is in the index.
Actually, you can have an iPhone application. Vedabase.net. Actually,
It's a website.
put that in your, what happens is that you hit the bookmark and put it on your screen, and that's how it's connected to mobile application.
You can do it,
Yeah, I can do it. उसका effect ही नहीं होगा कुछ.
You'll have to
मैं
transfer
पढ़ूंगा तो कोई effect नहीं आएगा.
actually all the books
Oh.
are for all the time.
नहीं, अभी ये तो मैं पढ़ूंगा तो कोई effect नहीं आएगा.
7, 6.
7, 6 होगा.
Signal is good.
Mama, okay, okay.
But what you can just do
7,
is
6 is different.
add different as a
Maybe I read the numbers wrong.
motto.
Problem with 7, 3.
Yep.
Yeah, in Hindi, the 3 and 6 are like that. Right? 6 is like this and 3 is like this, right? Something like that. Yeah. There are various grades of men, and out of many thousands, one may be sufficiently interested in transcendental realization to try to know what is the self, what is the body, and what is the absolute truth. Generally, mankind is simply engaged in animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first six chapters of the Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge, in understanding the self, the super self, and the process of realization by Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and discriminating self from matter. However, Krishna can be known only by persons who are in Krishna consciousness. Other transcendentalists may achieve impersonal Brahman realization, for this is easier than understanding Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Person, but at the same time, he is beyond the knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma. The yogis and jnanis are confused in their attempts to understand Krishna. Although the greatest of the impersonalists, Sripad Shankaracharya, has admitted in his Gita commentary that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his followers do not accept Krishna as such. Actually, Prabhupada is not addressing your specific question in the purport. So, at the end, Prabhupada says, no one can understand Krishna by his blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service to him. So, the answer is that it's not possible by your own attempts as a siddha, but if you develop love for Krishna, he will reveal himself to you. In the 10th chapter also, in the Chaturshloki Gita, the 3rd verse talks about that. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. That people who become my devotees, I'll give them buddhi yoga knowledge by which they can understand me. So,
Then siddhas can't be devotees, then that's how I understand it, is it right?
yeah.
But as you rightly said earlier, siddhas could be like Brahmavadis. Or
It applies to all three categories.
All three categories,
Yeah. Because those whole yoga process, the yoga ladder applies to all three categories. And again, for those who are not familiar with the categories, I don't want to get into it right now because it will take another 1 hour lecture. So maybe we can discuss it next time. Aarti time?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
भगवान की, प्रहलाद महाराज की, गौर प्रेमानंदी, प्रभुपाद
He's gonna,
Good job, guys. Very good.
Okay, here. He's not gonna kill you. He's just really upset. He's gonna kill me. I'm not kidding. He is going to kill me. No, he would never kill you. Yeah, he might. He strangled me 3 times this morning. What?
Hi, Anya. Very good. Anya, photo खींचेगी आपका. हाँ बेटा मैं कर दूँगा. मैं कर दूँगा.